I always believed that after 15 years of marriage, there were no more surprises left between us. We had survived job losses, 2 kids, a near foreclosure on our first home, and the death of her father. Through every storm, we held each other tighter, promising that no matter how rough life got, we'd weather it together. So when I started noticing Evelyn spending more time on her phone, I chalked it up to stress or needing an escape. She was a nurse and had just switched to night shifts, something she claimed gave her more time during the day with our youngest, Olivia, before kindergarten. I didn't question it. She was exhausted, and I was just trying to hold down things on my end. But then I started waking up in the middle of the night and finding her not in bed, but on the back porch with her phone. She'd quickly click the screen off and smile at me, whispering that she was just checking on a patient or texting her sister. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. The idea that something was wrong with us didn't even cross my mind. Not really. But that seed of doubt began to grow roots. One night, while she was in the shower, her iPad pinged with a message. We had the same Apple ID, so her notifications came through. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But when I saw a DM pop up from someone named MikeX, my heart froze. The message read, "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again." My body went cold. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to make sense. Waiting for it to be some misunderstanding. But more messages started coming through. My hands shook as I opened the app. That's when I saw it, an Instagram account I had never seen before. It wasn't under her real name. It was private, and it was full of photos of her. Dressed up, smiling, in lingerie I had never seen, captions that dripped with flirtation and intimacy. There were comments too. Heart emojis. Fire emojis. Conversations with men I didn't know. And all of them dated during her night shifts. My wife had a secret life. A version of herself I had never met. A version that didn't include me or the family we had built. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I just sat there paralyzed as the walls of my life collapsed around me. This wasn't just a flirtation. It was deliberate. Planned. Hidden in plain sight. I waited for her to get out of the shower. I needed to confront her. I needed answers. But when she stepped out, wrapped in a towel, smiling like nothing had changed, I couldn't say a word. Not yet. Not until I understood the full extent of what she was doing. So instead, I kissed her on the forehead, told her I loved her, and went back to bed, pretending everything was still okay. But I had already begun planning how I'd uncover every piece of her double life. And when I did, she'd have no idea what was coming. The next morning, Evelyn kissed me goodbye like she always did before heading out for her supposed shift. She smelled like lavender shampoo and wore her hospital scrubs, the same ones I'd seen 100 times before. She was a master of routine, and that was the scariest part, how normal she made everything feel while hiding an entire world from me. As soon as she was out the door, I opened her iPad again, logged into that secret Instagram account, and started combing through every post, every comment, every message. The more I saw, the more I realized this wasn't some recent thing. The earliest post I found was almost a year old. That meant for nearly 12 months, she'd been curating this secret life behind my back. There were photos of her in hotel rooms I didn't recognize, captions like "Midnight Escape with my favorite view," and comments from men who called her baby, goddess, my queen. Some of them even talked about things they'd done together, places they'd gone. I matched the dates of those posts with the nights she claimed she was on call or doing overtime. Every time I looked at one of those photos, I remembered the nights I was home with the kids, making frozen pizzas and telling them mommy was working hard to take care of people. I felt like a fool. At one point, I found a message from a guy named Brandon. He was the most consistent one, always commenting, always liking, always messaging her sweet nothings. They had exchanged numbers. I copied his number and saved it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. That evening, I played it cool. I grilled dinner, helped the kids with homework, and watched a movie with Evelyn like nothing had changed. She snuggled up next to me and laid her head on my chest. My heart was racing, but I held it together. She told me she was tired and that she might take a nap before her next shift. I offered to wake her up in a couple of hours. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're the best husband ever." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Once she was asleep, I took her phone from the nightstand and mirrored it to her iPad using a backup app I'd installed years ago. Within seconds, I had access to everything: texts, contacts, recent calls, even her deleted photos. That's when I found the photos that weren't on Instagram. There was a hidden folder, one she thought no one would ever find. Photos of her in a robe, in a hot tub, in bed with another man's arm wrapped around her waist. His face wasn't fully visible, but I could tell it wasn't me. The tattoos were wrong. The skin tone was wrong. And then there was the voice message. A saved voice memo labeled Monday night. I tapped play. Her voice came through the speaker, low and breathy, saying, "God, I wish I could fall asleep in your arms every night. You make me feel like I'm the only woman in the world." I pressed pause and sat in silence. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight. I had gone from suspicion to discovery to heartbreak in a matter of hours. But now came the part that scared me the most. What was I going to do with all of this? Divorce? Confrontation? Revenge? I didn't know yet. But what I did know was that my marriage, as I understood it, was over. Evelyn had built a fantasy life and let it bleed into our reality. She thought she was careful. She thought she'd never be caught. But she didn't know I had seen it all. And I wasn't done digging. For the next few days, I played the role of the oblivious husband, which was far more difficult than I imagined. Every time Evelyn smiled at me or called me babe, a part of me wanted to explode. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, hearing her breathing next to me, wondering how many nights she'd laid in another man's bed before slipping back into ours. But I couldn't act on emotion. I needed a plan. I started tracking her location with an app one secretly installed on her phone. I used an old parental control system we'd once used for our daughter's iPad and repurposed it for Evelyn's device. She never noticed. The first night I tracked her, she actually did go to work. Relief washed over me briefly. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe it was just some emotional affair she'd ended. But then came Friday. She told me she was covering a night shift because someone called out. I acted supportive, packed her a small snack bag like I used to, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive off. 30 minutes later, her location stopped moving. It wasn't the hospital. It was a Marriott about 15 minutes away from downtown. I waited 5 more minutes to be sure she wasn't just passing by. She wasn't. She stayed parked, then her icon disappeared from the map, meaning she either turned off her phone or left it in the car. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I put the kids to bed early, told them Mommy was saving lives, and waited another hour before I left the house. When I pulled up to the hotel, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I sat in the car, staring at the entrance, scanning every couple that walked in or out. Around midnight, I saw her. Evelyn walked out of the lobby laughing with some man I'd never seen before, tall, clean-cut, probably in his early 40s, with a hand on her lower back like he owned her. She wasn't wearing scrubs. She wore a tight black dress I'd never seen in our closet, heels she said were too uncomfortable for work, and a look on her face I hadn't seen in years. Carefree, glowing, alive. They got into his car and drove off. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I sat in that parking lot for almost an hour trying to process what I had just seen. The woman I married, the mother of my kids, had another life, another man, and from the looks of it, another version of herself she never brought home. The next morning, she returned like nothing had happened. She smelled like expensive cologne and hotel soap. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "It was a brutal shift, but I made it through." I nodded and said nothing. That weekend I started gathering documents, bank records, credit card statements, anything that could give me leverage. I opened a private folder on my laptop labeled insurance, where I stored everything I found: photos, screenshots, location logs, timestamps. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I wasn't ready. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof, a full timeline, and maybe, just maybe, a recording. I bought a mini audio recorder online and planned to hide it in her car. If I was going to blow this whole thing up, I wanted every detail. I wanted to hear her voice saying it out loud. That she was cheating. That she loved someone else. That our life together was just a cover. Because if I was going to lose everything, I at least wanted the truth to come out like a grenade, messy, loud, and impossible to ignore. The next few days were a blur of pretending, watching, and digging. Evelyn continued her routine, and I continued mine. Only mine was now filled with silent investigations and mental calculations. I waited until she went to the grocery store alone on a Wednesday afternoon to sneak out and place the mini recorder under the passenger seat of her car. I wrapped it in black tape and wedged it deep beneath the seat rail, so it wouldn't be seen or easily knocked loose. It would run for days on low power and voice activation. When she returned, she greeted me with a cheerful, They had your favorite beer on sale. I smiled and thanked her, all while wondering what secrets she'd spill into the silence of her car. That night, while she showered, I retrieved the recorder quickly and transferred the audio to my laptop. Hours of static and mundane moments at first. Calls to the hospital. Grocery lists. A friend talking about weekend plans. But then came Friday. Her shift started at 6 p.m., or so she said. The recording started at 5:53 p.m., with the unmistakable sound of the car door closing. Then her voice. "Hey babe, I'm heading out now." He bought it again, told him it's a double. A man's voice replied, muffled but clear enough. He's clueless. "You've got him wrapped." Evelyn laughed. That laugh, so genuine, so unlike the forced smile she gave me at dinner lately. Then he said, "You sure he doesn't suspect anything?" And she said, "Even if he did, he'd never do anything. He's too soft." My stomach dropped. That one sentence rewrote years of our marriage in an instant. She thought I was weak. She thought I'd never fight back. She thought I was too kind, too passive, too blind to see her lies for what they were. But she was wrong. I wasn't soft, I was calculating. I transferred the audio to the cloud and sent a backup to a secure folder. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there, staring at the ceiling again, while Evelyn slept peacefully beside me, unaware that her double life was already unraveling. The next morning, I decided I needed to find out who this man was. I started with our shared credit card statements and found a charge from a boutique jewelry store that we hadn't visited in years. The date matched the night she claimed she was working late. I went to the store under the pretense of shopping for a necklace for our anniversary. When I showed the sales clerk a photo of Evelyn, she smiled and said, "Oh yes, she was here last week." Picked up a custom bracelet. Said it was a gift for her fiancé. Fiancé. I thanked her and walked out with my hands shaking. Was she planning to leave me? Was she living a whole separate life with this man? I wasn't just dealing with an affair. I was dealing with a possible second engagement. That evening, Evelyn left again under the guise of a late shift. I waited exactly 30 minutes, then followed her. I kept a distance, turned my headlights off on quiet streets, used every ounce of restraint not to speed up when she hit a yellow light. She pulled into the same Marriott. But this time, I didn't sit in the parking lot. I waited 5 minutes, walked into the lobby, and asked for a key to a room my wife just checked into. I gave them her name and said she forgot her phone. The clerk hesitated, but I flashed my driver's license and a well-rehearsed worried husband face. After a moment, she handed me a spare key. Room 312. I walked slowly, my heart racing like I was about to face a ghost. I stood outside the door, hearing voices, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. I didn't knock. I slid the keycard in, turned the handle, and stepped into the room. The door clicked open, and what I saw in that room will never leave me. Evelyn was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing the red silk robe I gave her last Christmas. Her hair was down, makeup perfectly done, glass of wine in hand. Across from her stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, well-built, in a crisp white dress shirt unbuttoned, just enough to make it clear he wasn't just there for drinks. Their laughter stopped instantly. She froze when she saw me. The man turned, confusion on his face morphing quickly into something between anger and fear. Evelyn stood up quickly, her glass clinking on the nightstand. "What the hell are you doing here?" she demanded. But she already knew. She wasn't even trying to hide anymore. I looked at her, then at him. "So this is the double shift, huh?" I said. My voice was calm, too calm, and I could see it unsettled them both more than if I'd started screaming. "Who the hell are you?" the guy barked, stepping closer like he wanted to act tough. I held up my phone. "I'm her husband. And everything you've said to her in this room for the past 2 hours? It's all recorded. Smile for the camera." I wasn't bluffing. I had hit record on my phone before entering. Not that I needed it. My mind had already burned the image of the two of them into memory forever. Evelyn's face twisted into something venomous. "You followed me? You invaded my privacy?" she hissed. "You're seriously turning this on me?" I asked, incredulous. "You've been lying for months. I have audio of you laughing about how clueless I am. I have receipts. I have witnesses. You're done, Evelyn." The man looked like he wanted to speak again, but thought better of it. He grabbed his jacket and stormed past me, brushing my shoulder harder than necessary on the way out. Evelyn sat back down on the bed, now shaking, maybe from anger, maybe from fear. I didn't care. "How long?" I asked. 8 months, she said quietly. But it didn't mean anything at first. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. Those words stung more than any punch to the face. So you did fall in love with him, I said. She nodded. I looked around the room. The second wine glass, the playlist still playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker, the takeout containers on the dresser. This wasn't new. This wasn't a slip. This was routine. She started crying, reaching out to me, saying she never wanted to hurt me, saying she was confused. I backed away. I'm filing for divorce, I said. I've already talked to a lawyer. Everything's lined up. Her face collapsed into panic. You can't, please, we can fix this. I was going to end it. I just didn't know how to tell you. You ended it the moment you chose to meet him instead of coming home to me, I said. Then I turned and left the room. The hallway outside felt 10 times lighter than when I entered. I walked out of the hotel with no intention of looking back. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at a friend's place, someone I trusted enough to share the truth with. The next morning, I changed all my passwords, froze our joint accounts, and had the locks changed. Evelyn showed up later that day, pounding on the door, screaming through the peephole. I didn't answer. I just sat on the couch and listened. It was poetic, in a way, the silence she left me in now wrapped around her too. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew I'd never be the man she thought was too soft to act. That man was gone. The days that followed felt like walking through the ruins of a life I thought I understood. Evelyn kept calling, texting, begging for a conversation, pleading for another chance, but every time I saw her name flash on my screen, it brought me back to that hotel room, to the sound of her laughter with another man, to the image of her in that red robe meant only for me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing she could say that would erase what I'd seen, what I now knew. My lawyer moved fast. We filed for divorce citing infidelity, with all the evidence I had, texts, audio recordings, receipts. Everything she thought she had hidden so well was now documented and organized in folders. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. I discovered she had used our joint credit cards for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts, even vacations she claimed were girls' trips. The web of lies was deep and intentional. One night, about a week later, I got a knock on my door around 10 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw Evelyn standing there in the rain, drenched, mascara streaking down her face. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack. I just want to talk, she said, voice trembling. Please, I don't know where else to go. I stepped outside, not letting her in. You have a boyfriend, I said coldly. Go stay with him. She started crying harder. He left. He said it was too much drama, that he didn't sign up to be a homewrecker. I almost laughed. That's exactly what he signed up for. She looked so small in that moment, so unlike the confident, secretive woman I had discovered behind my back. I miss you, she whispered. I miss our life. I shook my head. You miss the comfort. You miss the safety I gave you while you were betraying me in secret. That's not love. That's convenience. She reached out to touch me, and I stepped back. I'm not your husband anymore, Evelyn. You made that choice for both of us. She turned and left, not saying another word. I stood in the doorway long after she was gone, feeling a strange mix of sorrow and relief. I had loved her once, deeply, fiercely. But that love had been used, twisted into something she thought she could manipulate. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding. I moved her things into storage and got rid of anything that reminded me of her. I deleted old photos, changed the playlist we used to listen to together, even repainted the bedroom. It was symbolic, but it helped. People say healing takes time, and they're right, but healing also takes action. You have to choose not to bleed for someone who wouldn't even offer you a bandage. One afternoon, while sorting through a box of papers, I found the anniversary card I gave her just a month before I caught her. It said, "Forever isn't long enough with you." I stared at it for a long time, then lit a match and let it burn in the kitchen sink. I wasn't holding on to anything that would keep me tethered to lies. A few friends tried to get me to start dating again, but I wasn't ready. I didn't want a distraction. I wanted peace. And for the first time in months, I could feel it creeping back into my life, slowly, steadily, like the sun rising after a long, brutal storm. I didn't need closure from Evelyn. I already had it. She made her choices. And I made mine. A few months had passed since Evelyn walked away in the rain. And in that time, I had transformed from a broken man into someone I almost didn't recognize. Stronger, quieter, more deliberate. The pain was still there, of course, tucked away in the corners of my mind like a scar that itches when the weather changes. But it no longer defined me. I went back to doing the things I had put on hold for years, playing guitar, hiking early in the mornings, catching up with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. It was like reintroducing myself to a version of me that had been buried under the weight of someone else's deception. One Saturday morning, I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't recognize. Her name was Amanda, and her profile picture showed a smiling woman with soft eyes and a little boy on her hip. "Hi," she wrote. "You don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about Evelyn." My stomach dropped. For a split second, I thought maybe Evelyn was hurt or worse. But when I clicked on her profile and saw dozens of photos of her and the same man Evelyn had been with at the hotel, the man from the security footage, my blood turned cold. Amanda turned out to be the man's ex-girlfriend. Not only that, she was the mother of his child, and she had her own story of betrayal. He had cheated on her with Evelyn. "I found messages between them," she wrote. "The timelines overlapped. While he was dating me and helping raise our son, he was seeing your wife. I didn't know she was married until I did some digging. I'm so sorry." She wasn't angry. She was exhausted, like someone who had been gaslit for far too long and was just now waking up. We talked for hours, piecing together timelines, comparing notes, and realizing just how deep the lies ran. Evelyn had told him that I was abusive, that I didn't love her anymore, that our marriage was already over. She spun a story where she was the victim, a narrative that made it easier for him to justify sleeping with someone else's wife. Amanda and I found ourselves oddly bonded by our mutual pain. We weren't flirting or trying to start something. We were just two people who had been collateral damage in someone else's selfish game. She thanked me for talking to her, and I thanked her for reaching out. It was strange, but healing. A week after that, Evelyn sent me a letter. A handwritten, 6-page confession that arrived in a plain envelope with no return address. I didn't open it right away. It sat on my kitchen table like a loaded gun. When I finally did read it, I was shocked at how brutally honest she had been. She admitted everything. That the affair started almost a year before I discovered it. That she felt trapped in our marriage even though she never said a word about being unhappy. That she liked the way the other man made her feel. Young, exciting, wanted. But it never meant she stopped loving me. "I just wanted to feel something different," she wrote. "I never meant to hurt you." That line made me laugh out loud. She never meant to hurt me, but she did. Repeatedly. Systematically. She described the guilt, the paranoia, the fear of being caught. She even mentioned the time I made her dinner on her birthday while she was texting him under the table. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt hollow. The letter didn't bring closure. It brought confirmation. She had chosen every step of this path. It wasn't an accident. It was a series of selfish, cowardly choices. And now she had to live with them. I folded the letter back up and burned it, just like the anniversary card. I wouldn't let her words poison my peace. I wasn't that man anymore. I was free. A few weeks after burning Evelyn's letter, I stood in my garage one evening, sorting through boxes that hadn't been touched since we moved into the house. Some were labeled in her handwriting: winter clothes, books, Christmas decor. Each one a time capsule from a life that no longer felt like mine. As I dug deeper, I found a small shoebox taped shut, shoved behind a toolbox. It wasn't labeled, and for some reason, my gut twisted as I peeled back the tape and opened it. Inside were photos, some of us, some just of her. But then I found a stack of Polaroids I had never seen before. Pictures of her with him. Hotel rooms, beach trips, even a picture of them kissing in what looked like a parking garage. It was like finding another woman entirely. She was glowing in these photos, radiant in a way she hadn't been around me for years. As much as it stung, I studied each image, hoping for some clue, some insight into what went so wrong. That's when I noticed something strange. One photo showed them at a wine tasting event. In the background was a banner with the name of a local vineyard, one we'd gone to for our second anniversary. The date printed on the photo? A week before our fourth. She had taken him to the same place we made memories together. I dropped the photo and sat back, trying to breathe through the fresh wave of betrayal. It was more than just cheating. It was erasure. She hadn't just replaced me. She had recycled my memories with someone else. The rage didn't boil over like it used to. It didn't need to. I was past the explosion phase. Instead, it calcified into resolve. That night, I made a decision. I listed the house for sale. I was done living in the shadows of her lies, done walking through rooms where echoes of our fake happiness still lingered. The realtor was surprised when I told her I didn't care what I got for it. I just needed to be out. I packed what mattered and donated the rest. Starting fresh wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was survival. I found a small house a few towns over, nothing fancy but quiet and full of light. The neighbors were friendly, the mornings were calm, and for the first time in years, I slept without waking up in a cold sweat. One Sunday morning, while drinking coffee on the back porch, I got a call from Evelyn's sister, Rachel. We hadn't spoken since everything went down, but her voice sounded cautious. "I know it's weird for me to reach out," she said, "but I think you should know, Evelyn's not doing well." I stayed silent. Rachel sighed. She moved in with that guy. It lasted a few months. Then she caught him cheating on her, with someone from his gym. She's been crashing with friends. Lost her job. She's kind of a mess. I still didn't speak. Not out of coldness, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say. Rachel continued, "I'm not asking you to forgive her or anything. I just thought you'd want to know. You didn't deserve what happened. None of it." That was the first time someone from her side of the family had said those words to me. "Thanks for calling," I finally said. After we hung up, I stared at the trees swaying in the breeze. I didn't feel joy or vengeance. Just clarity. Evelyn had built a house of cards, and when it collapsed, she was left holding the pieces. I had walked away before the wind hit. I had chosen a different ending. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. A few months after I'd settled into my new home, I started to find a rhythm again. The kind that didn't revolve around suspicion, late-night arguments, or trying to decode text messages that weren't meant for me. I woke up without the weight of wondering where she was, who she was with, or what lie I'd be told next. I filled my days with things I'd forgotten I loved: woodworking in the garage, hiking, reading books I used to devour before marriage turned into a constant state of triage. But just as I thought I was finally leaving the storm behind, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A real, handwritten letter in an envelope with no return address. Just my name scrawled in a familiar script I hadn't seen since the day she left. My hands trembled as I opened it, the paper smelling faintly of her perfume. A detail that hit me harder than it should have. The letter was long, 4 pages. And unlike the last one she wrote, this one wasn't angry or manipulative. It was broken. She wrote about how everything had unraveled. How the man she left me for turned out to be a serial cheater. How she lost her job because of the workplace affair. How her parents had distanced themselves in quiet disappointment. She talked about the nights she lay awake wishing she could go back, not even to fix things, but just to sit beside me and feel safe again. She said she finally understood the weight of what she'd done. That her pursuit of passion had left her with ashes. That I hadn't just been a good man. I'd been her anchor, and she'd cut the rope chasing a mirage. The last line said, "I know I don't deserve a response, but I needed you to know I was wrong." I was so wrong. I read the letter 3 times before setting it down. And then I sat there in silence, not knowing what to do. The part of me that once craved an apology, that begged for an explanation, was quiet now. I had gotten what I wanted, but it didn't feel like vindication. It felt like confirmation. Confirmation that I'd spent years loving someone who had no idea how to love me back. I didn't write her back. I didn't burn the letter either. I placed it in the bottom drawer of my nightstand, not as a keepsake but as a reminder. A reminder that the pain I had endured wasn't in my head. That the doubts I'd battled every night had been real. That the man I used to be had been sacrificed at the altar of someone else's selfishness. Days passed, then weeks. The letter stayed in the drawer, and life went on. I joined a local hiking group, not looking for anything but fresh air and new trails. But there I met someone. Her name was Marissa. She was kind, soft-spoken, with this quiet strength about her. She never asked about my past, and I didn't offer it. Not at first. But over time, I told her pieces. Not the whole storm, just the thunder and lightning that still echoed some nights. She listened, not with pity but with presence. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt seen, not as a victim, not as a man picking up broken pieces, but as someone who had survived. One evening, we watched the sunset from a bluff overlooking the valley. She turned to me and said, "You've got a sadness in your eyes. But it's not who you are. It's just something you've carried." That stuck with me. It made me realize that healing isn't about pretending it never happened. It's about learning to carry it differently. To set it down when you can. To let the scars be part of you, but not all of you. I wasn't ready to say I was fully healed. But I was getting there. Not because Evelyn apologized. Not because karma did its work. But because I had chosen not to stay buried in the wreckage she left behind. I was choosing peace now. And that was something no one could take from me. It was one of those days where the sky is so clear that it feels like the world has been scrubbed clean. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the trees, and I was on a run, my legs carrying me up the hill that had once felt like an insurmountable obstacle. But now, with every step, I felt lighter. I stopped at the top, breathing heavily, and looked out over the valley. The view had always been my favorite. When Evelyn and I had moved into our house, we used to talk about how we'd someday sit here together, enjoying the view, drinking wine in the golden light of the evening. Those plans felt so distant now, almost like they belonged to someone else. And in some ways they did. It was hard to believe it was the same person, that version of me who had been so eager to share a future with someone who could betray me so completely. The weight of all of it, the lies, the heartbreak, the destruction, had been slowly shedding. It wasn't that it was gone, not entirely. The memories would always linger. But they no longer held the power they once did. I wasn't defined by what had happened anymore. It was just a part of my past, not my identity. I felt free. And that was something I hadn't felt in years. I smiled to myself, knowing I was finally getting my life back. It was no longer about seeking revenge or wallowing in bitterness. It was about finding myself again, rediscovering who I was without the shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. I had worked hard for this peace, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. As I turned and started jogging back down the hill, I thought about what Marissa had said to me that day. You've got a sadness in your eyes, but it's not who you are. It's just something you've carried. Maybe I had carried it for a long time, but now I knew that I didn't have to carry it forever. I wasn't sure what the future held, or whether Marissa and I would end up as something more than just friends. But I did know this. I was finally ready for whatever came next. Because I had let go of the past. Because I had forgiven myself. And because I had the strength to move forward, no matter what. I reached the bottom of the hill and took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill my lungs. I wasn't looking back anymore. I was only looking forward. The past was behind me, and I was done carrying it. And that, in itself, was the greatest gift I could have ever given myself.